Greetings from the garden. It's August 24th, 25th, something like that. Anyway, just had the pleasure of spending some time today to sort of think about what it means to be a thinking human being in nature. And it seems that it's going to be pretty key in the future to human beings to understand sort of what their place is in nature and how human cognition, our sort of way of thinking and being in the world, is a very specific way of being. And that's maybe a little tricky for us as humans to understand because we're surrounded by human stuff. We're surrounded by straight lines and right angles and computers, right, and sort of all these things that are a natural sort of outpouring of our understanding, sort of how we process the world. In the same way that, right, a bee knows no other way than to make hexagons when it makes a beehive. This is the way that things end up. If you looked at the Earth from far away, maybe if you had a telescope, a very powerful telescope that could let you see, human cities, and maybe you see skyscrapers and things like that. If you could get that close, you would see that there's something going on here. But that something might seem like the only thing we have, but I am here to suggest that although there is sort of a cognitive distortion that humans are up against, that if we sort of utilize just normal human creativity in nature, I think that we can access some of these things that are a little bit tricky for us to sort of put down on paper or identify in a kind of quantitative way. And so we do this by being creative, and I would hope that you feel like in your interaction with nature, if you're doing gardening, that it's your that you feel some level of creativity and improvisation and the ability to try new things and learn new things, but that you should feel as though you are working with nature. And it's really, a beautiful thing to be able to, say that this is something I made with my own body. This is something I made without the help of technology. I guess if you consider a scythe to be technology, or that I'm, capping my level of technology at something, and feel free to do the same for yourselves, whatever that might be. But I would say don't include petroleum in the equation. If you really want, to get a good sort of spiritual communion with nature, I think it's important to keep things sort of human powered. And that's not just because of, how that forces you to think about nature, but also just for really simple reasons, like things like that, they break, they're noisy. They're the opposite of elegance, the sort of elegance that we seek in a system like this. And that, when you think about, humans, working out or running on a treadmill or something like that, that is, we're getting to, the sort of dystopian future that science fiction writers have been predicting will happen, sooner or later. But that, I think that's the wrong way forward. That's ultimately just sort of a symptom of a culture that has lost its connection with nature and with sort of wildness. of the world. And so I think that, yeah, going forward, this is a creative act which you can do with your body, which results in good exercise. Unfortunately, not enough sometimes. Maybe I should stop using a lawnmower and instead gather my grass by hand. But I mean, that's the example, so there's going to be something like this. It's already getting to the point where I can be pretty lazy. You could definitely, I think, calorie-wise, I don't know, get fat doing this sort of living, maybe. But that you're going to be in sort of balance with nature. And people talk about this or that diet. There's so many theories about what you should and shouldn't eat. And in just my life, the pendulum has swung. We used to look at there used to be the thing called the 4 food groups. And I guess you were just supposed to get a little bit of each, some of each every day. And then that turned to the food pyramid, right? Which then we now don't use, I guess. And I think going forward, that's reductionism. It's really just going to depend on where you live on the earth and what resources are available to you. But I think that if you're eating things that are grown close to you and that you have a connection with, we may be harnessing powers there that we can't yet identify, right? That there are, sort of connections that go a little deeper. And nature is much more sophisticated than we think it is, although we've made significant progress in understanding some things about nature. There's a huge amount that we're really just now scratching the surface of. So with that, I can say that there's going to be connections and things that are really intuitive, about living simply, that turn out to be sort of scientifically and quantifiably true and advantageous as well. So down the line, I think that I want to think more about sort of creativity in the garden and in agriculture, and how that can lead to a happy human mind, as opposed to one that is constantly worried and stressed out. So cheers to that. I wish these things upon you. Johnny. Greetings. October 25th. It is good to look at the garden in the shade. The leaves stand at attention. The plants look pretty healthy. I'm happy with how things are filling in here. It is pleasing to the eye to have just nice full coverage of food plants. It's a pretty cool trick. Corn, some of it's starting to look ready. I've taken a few cobs down already, and they look really cool. Maybe I'll show you those later. It hasn't been raining much. I'd say it's maybe been 5 or 6 days since it's rained, so I've been doing a little bit of watering with the can there, but that's it. Mostly just on stuff that side of the garden where it's got a lot of light and a lot of water gets sucked up during the day. I'm trying to focus my mulching efforts down there. This is a more kind of high turnover area as well, so always a little bit of a challenge to keep the soil moist naturally. I'm using some of this black landscape fabric, whatever stuff, but honestly I think what works better in terms of soil moisture retention is just, a pile of organic matter of some kind. So I'm using my grass, lawn clippings, but build it up. Over time, you might not need to. I'm going to focus a little more this time on growing a robust sort of cover crop, something that I can chop down and hopefully plant into. It's always a little tricky with things like barley because it grows really big. There's no problem there, but chopping it down and then planting into it can be a little tricky because unless you cover it up really well, the barley is going to kind of grow back up. And so a little bit of challenge there. I'll experiment with, cutting down, making a big pile. So not necessarily chopping and dropping, but cutting it down, then seeding, then putting stuff on top of it to see if I can get the barley to not grow back in the spring. Over on this side, I'm going to do a crop of barley for the spring. And that'll just be a grain harvest, seed saving kind of thing. Haven't done too much with the genetics of barley, just because it basically does what I want it to already. And especially when you get it in early, and by that I mean July-ish, doing the sort of Fukuoka Bonfils method. You get tons of tillers right off the bat. You get a lot of tillers, and you can get away with using actually a pretty small amount of seed. But I didn't have as good a coverage barley-wise as I would have liked. I don't know. I think there's probably some video of it back there somewhere, but I think it can get better. I would like to try and do wheat as well. Got a little bit of wheat. I found some, what's it called, Wakelands or something. They did basically kind of a big wheat grex over in the UK, and I was able to get my hands on some of that. Seems like it's pretty genetically diverse general wheat. So I might try planting some of that as well. Anyway, feels very good in the garden right now, and this is a good time of year to be thinking about what to do next, what kinds of fall crops you can get in. For me, that's things like turnips, kale, stuff like that. I'm going to try sowing, into this area here, because I think there's, quite a bit you can get away with, even with the sort of chaos of what looks to be, grass, etc. But this is what you can get without weeding from, what's basically just been lawn. There's been no forking, or anything. Really trying to, pump up the soil here. So, not bad. Not bad for, throwing a corn seed on the ground with no plow, no till, whatever. A lot of stuff didn't come up, but some stuff did. And this is in my third year of saving seeds, so I'm going to, from here on out, I'm going to try and be a little bit more sort of specific with my needs. And I think, there's going to be some really cool stuff that can happen as a result. So that'll be fun. As far as stuff growing inside the corn, there definitely is plenty of cucurbits, then also lots of tomatoes popping up. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm wondering if I can just kind of get away with never really shaving down the ground with all this grass and stuff here. I don't know. I'm going to try seeding in all kinds of things. Next time I know there's going to be a good rain. And yeah, that's sort of the name of the game. At this point, I'll probably seed some barley in here as well. But so there's not, not a ton of bare ground over here. Pretty much 100% food crop where you look visually. A little bit of, some grass and weeds here, but not too bad. So this patch of the garden, is half and half. Not super shady, but not, not as shady as over here. So this may be sort of the sweet spot for certain things in the future. Especially with my sort of watering habits or non-habits. I really, haven't done any supplemental watering here. From where those posts are, yeah, I do, some spot watering. And this is not a particular schedule that I have. There's nothing on a timer. There's nothing that necessarily is always getting watered. But here, yeah, this is no water. You can definitely get away with doing okra dry in Kentucky. And yeah, again, corn, I know this is, it's kind of experimental. It might really pop if I do it in full sun. So we'll see what the results of that might be in the future. This is, a land race that I do want to get out there and to see what people can do with it. It's got, some classic corn genetics. A little bit of the loft house genetics in there, I think, but mostly this is just kind of a grex of old school corn varieties. Some of the Native American ones, some of the sort of old-timey American varieties, and just whatever else I could get my hand on. General, I guess, yeah, dent. I would say dent is the main thing I'm growing here. A bandit has come to take a bunch of my landrace corn. It is what it is. It's okay. I was a little bummed out at first, but I think that it's going to be all right. This gives an opportunity for all these curcubits that I got growing here to really start spread out. This is, the animal has done a lot of work for me in terms of getting corn down to the ground. I'm guessing it was a raccoon. I don't really know for sure. But, what didn't make it and didn't thrive, is not what I want. And we'll see what's, still standing. A lot of cobs still on the plants. Some not really ready to harvest yet, so if I do want to save seed from them, I am trying to wait it out, see if the animal gets to it or not. Because at the end of the day, if I'm saving seeds from plants that did make it, that were not susceptible to this pest, this mammal, whatever it was, I'm trying to select towards ones that can't be knocked down by this animal. I think that seems to be the main thing it was doing, was choosing ones that were kind of skinny and then just knocking them down and then gnawing on the cobs. Can you blame them? So yeah, it'll be cool to see what kind of fills out here. This is going to make a nice thick vegetative cover for what comes next, which is barley. This should hopefully make it a little easier. I've been sowing barley in here little by little ever since late July, I think. So now is the time to see what can happen. I may try and sneak some fall crops in here as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next here, but very much cool with it and ready to move on to the next phase. Survival of the fittest. This is how it works. There's some sorghum that's still kicking, and those obviously didn't get pulled down, but it'll be interesting to see how things kind of fill out, and from here on out what's going to sort of take an opportunity here in the niche. There's a lot more access to sunlight than there was just a little while ago, and it'll be interesting to see what the roots of a lot of these corn plants look like. Something just caught my eye over here with yeah, this one. Pretty crazy to see how long these air roots are. That's a good, 6 inches or so of air roots. And, some of them, these didn't make it to the ground. They were trying. It's cool to see that they kind of webbed out, as they're getting closer, almost there. But yeah, look at the way that it's, taking an opportunity to get all this moisture here. So yeah, wow, multiple layers, 1, 2, 3, sort of 3, 4 layers of air roots. So yeah, this is something that can definitely happen in your garden, and that's cool to see some adaptation there. This one doesn't seem to have made it, but very cool. Plenty of biomass on the ground, and this will be great. This will be nice for all these cucurbits to sort of crawl over, and so very much welcoming the next phase of whatever is to happen here. I'll be certainly throwing out seeds to see what nature seems to prefer, but yeah, this is okay, right? If I was blaming myself for this, or if I was really disappointed, I would be thinking about, what I could have done differently, da-da-da-da. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that I don't really have to think about that sort of stuff, because this is just what happens, right? And you accept the yield that you get. You accept the genetics that you save seed for. And so at the end of the day, I know that I'm slowly building up resistance for whatever it is that did this to the crop. But here's some of the good stuff that got saved, got taken at the right time. So some stuff did work out really nicely. Some really cool color, and yeah, so this will be, well, not all of this, about half of this is going to end up being sort of my A-grade seed, and then I'll continue on. A few more nice looking cobs here as well. I'll go into a little more detail about what I'm going to do with these, but yeah, pretty nice looking colors, and a few healthy cobs. So moving forward, I'm going to focus on really just replanting those for my A-grade stuff. But if I were to take the approach of saying, oh well, I should put up a fence that will keep this animal away, then that means that I'm going to have to put up a fence every year, maintain a fence all the time. And I guess long term, I'm hoping that I can find some corn that does not get pulled down by animals. but I can sort of select towards tougher plants in that regards. But again, not accepting the sort of countermeasure that you put into place. The countermeasure being replant and survival of the fittest. So we'll see how it goes.